for this, mate.
A little bit of Erica by my side. A little bit of Tina.
Whoa, like...
Jump up and down and move it all around. Keep your hand and turn it around. And you do it all right. In my life. A little bit of Erica by my side. A little bit of me, that's all I need to see. A little bit of time in my side. You find it in the deepest pressure.
8 minutes counting, folks.
Coming down the stairs with
7 minutes.
Coaching on the Millennium Clock. Alicia, possibly off the shot. Holladays on into the year 2000. We got 3 minutes popped out on the Millennium Clock. We got 3 minutes cocked. 3 minutes counting.
Not my fault.
Let's get home, baby. 3 minutes 30.
1995.
3 minutes 30. 3 minutes on the clock. 3 minutes on the clock, counting down. 3 minutes in 1990. 2 minutes boss.
It's on now. It's on. You don't touch it anymore.
Stick it up, Paul.
Stop the clock! Stop the clock! I found the clue!
Right, everyone down on the floor, everyone down on the floor. Come on, Paul, get it out, son, come on. We got 1 minute in coaching and we're going to the All Exile.
Look it up in a minute, man.
Oh, carry on. Large link up coming from the bullion.
Right, so we're going to the Old Exile now.
Yeah, drop.
Going to the Old Exile.
I know.
Here we go, I can't see my clock.
No.
We got 1 minute 33. 1 minute 33. Right, we got 1 minute 23. Hey, live from the bullion. Here we go, the countdown's coming right now. Live here. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
it now, dance to that. Come on. I've got to do my job, you see. No, personal love, it's my job. Oh, it's my job. Dance with that. I've never had the new year. Come on! Bang! That was my back. Go on,
This is the way to friggin' time.
Stick your lighter under it.
Put on my ass, I'm shimmy.
Paul knows what he's... Go on, Paul! That's just what I was going to do, lighter.
Oh my God, let's get it.
Yeah, that's what I said, need the lighter does it, that's all. Fucking Guy Fawkes himself. Give it to it, let it go.
Oh, stand back! Stand back, this is a big one.
Go on, let him go.
Yay! Dave, don't do that. Wow, you're not fair.
Stand back! Stand back! Meanwhile, back on the run.
Looking through this catalogue, and it's our very first holiday abroad. We come to this Balearic Island. We go, oh look, how about Ibiza? But at the time we had arrived in Ibiza, it was really Ibiza. But we could not even pronounce the place we were going to.
Radio Luxembourg, the station of the stars. What are you doing about your holiday? A program in the lighter mood brought to you by the courtesy of Gay Tours.
Gay Tours was one of a host of small tour operators that brought package holidays abroad to the British public. These were the days before gay liberation, and Gay Tours sold conventional, old-fashioned holiday pleasures. But going Gay Tours wasn't always as cosy as customers were led to believe.
I'm Vincent Cobb, Managing Director of Gay Tours. We're here on location in Ibiza, shooting the final sequences of a film you'll be seeing shortly.
Because the passengers were flying on aeroplanes that we know now were not serviced to the level that they should have been. And maintenance, I think, was not just slap-happy, to some extent it was a bit irresponsible.
The aircraft, chartered by Gay Tours, were run on a shoestring budget and, like many others, suffered from broken fittings and leaking luggage racks.
Gentlemen, in a few moments' time we shall be taking off.
Ruby Webster, flew to Mallorca.
I was a little bit afraid. Well, I've never been on a plane before. The plane went along the runway, fast, up in the air, and I felt something wet coming on my shoulder. And I looked up and I thought, the plane was raining in. That was my first thought. And my husband sat next to me. I said, this plane's raining in, Tom. She said, don't be silly, don't rain in. I said, well, this is wet, look, feel it, you know. I pushed the table down and one side of that went down. And as he leaned forward, the side of this seat fell off. That was another thing. I thought, well, no, it's right, never right in this living world. This plane is literally coming to pieces as we're going along.
To keep prices down, charter flights to Spain were often timetabled for 3 return journeys a day. But there was no leeway when things went wrong, and long delays at airports became the bane of the holidaymaker.
The passengers had to endure, enormously extended delays. We'd say, look, I'm sorry, we're going to have at least a 12-hour delay, because we couldn't possibly tell them the truth. Like, it could be 2 days. When we finally did get them on board, the pilot would say, well, I've got a few problems, but I think we're going to be all right.
Eileen Cook had a nightmare journey back from Mallorca.
We all trooped out and got on the plane, and the pilot came. Now, I've an announcement to make, ladies and gentlemen. We want you to keep calm. We're waiting for a slot. We have a bit of a problem here. He said there is something loose in the engine, and they haven't got a spanner to tighten it. But I've been and had a look, and I think we've fixed it properly. But he said, I'm not sure, so I want you to keep calm. We're going to take off. I want you to get into crash positions, and I'm going to go down the runway, and if that engine doesn't fire, I'll abort the mission, so therefore you will feel a jolt. But anyway, it took off, went off perfect. But I'll tell you this, every seat bag on that plane was in use. We were all absolutely terrified.
Despite all the delays and hazards, the British kept signing up for package holidays in ever-increasing numbers. A holiday abroad, once associated with film stars and the super-rich, was now within the grasp of the majority, like Lola Smith from London's East End.
You know, you never thought you were going to travel. You felt like a film star. You thought, I'm like a film star. I'm going abroad. And on that plane, you felt very important. I am on an aeroplane. I'm going to the Balearic Islands. It was your oldest dream. The very first morning, looked at it, I thought, I can't believe this. I thought, this is heaven. We wanted to get down in that blue sea and on that sand. Anyway, we must have laid out there all day. Oil, suntan, in the water, out the water, with salt burns is shocking. We didn't realise that. We're just laying out like 2 pairs of braces, meaning getting this sun. When it was about 5 or 6, we've got out with sunstroke. We're totally sunstroke. We've gone upstairs to our room shivering. The next day we come out in blisters, all to get this tan. And that's when you thought, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to go home now. I've seen it. I want to go home. I don't want yours. I want to go home.
Spanish hotels served up an abundance of exotic local dishes, hoping to please and impress the British who stayed there. However, many on package holidays were conservative in their tastes and reluctant to experiment with these foreign foods, like Dave Palmer from Lancashire.
I wasn't keen on anything like that. Give me a good pan of potato hash or a nice bit of broth and dumplings. Do me fine, but I weren't keen on this continental stuff. I remember a bloody bread roll and a lump of butter, and it was called a continental breakfast. Well, I didn't like that at all, so I said, I can't do with this to the waiter. I want some food, like. And you were lucky if you could get a pot of proper tea. I went out and I got a box of cornflakes and a bottle of milk and put it in my wardrobe. And of course, I used to every morning when I got up, make cornflakes and cereal out of my wardrobe before I went down for this here bread roll and butter, which is a continental breakfast.
Eager to please, hotels began laying on English dishes, sometimes with the assistance of the guests themselves.
Every night they brought a pudding, and they called it cabinet pudding. Jam underneath one day, chocolate the next, custard the next, all different names, diplomatic pudding. And I said, well, that's twice we've had diplomatic pudding this week. What about rice pudding? Have you ever heard of rice pudding? English people like rice pudding. No, 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 no rice, no, not in pudding. And I said, oh, yes, 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 yes. Now, you come, see my cook. So he took me into the kitchens, and I met the cook, and he said, in Spanish, this lady wants you to make rice pudding. And he said, pudding with rice? No. And I said, yes, English people like rice pudding. He said, show. So I told him how to do it, and we had rice pudding every day that week. Everybody was going for the rice pudding because it was really nice. He learned to do it, so I think I give them a little bit of what they taught me a little bit, and I taught them a little bit.
By the late 60s, the Spanish costas and islands were dubbed Blackpool on the Med. It was a recognition that hotels and resorts were now geared to a hotter, more sensual version of the traditional British seaside holiday. Every November, Mallorca literally became Blackpool on the Med when thousands of the town's landladies, like Pat Mancini, decamped to Spanish hotels to enjoy an out-of-season month in the sun.
To me, it was like a palace. I mean, I'd never been in a hotel like that. Our own bathroom, our own toilet, never seen that. And so we got in, we run in, put our things in there, and it was just massive swimming pool, fabulous, and it was right on the front. So when we're all downstairs, dead excited, running out near the pool, outside, walking up and down, and it was all there. They'd all come from Blackpool, it was just like this, it was all from home. Everybody that was in Blackpool had escaped and gone to Mallorca. When you got there, you knew everybody there. That's what made the holiday. Hiya, how are you going on? How are we doing? Oh, I shut yesterday. I shut. Oh no, well, we had to wait a week, and we couldn't get a flight. And you'd all be talking about the same thing. Where do you come from? Manchester. Seen you in the airport, and what's the name's coming out, and they're coming out next week. And I'm seeing them. Oh, we're going in that bar tonight, and you just went in British pubs. You did just the same. It was just like Blackpool.
There were also opportunities to meet new people, usually fellow Brits staying at the same hotel.
The biggest part of my holiday used to be in the morning, going down, sitting at a table and finding out who I was sat with. And I found that as soon as you started conversation, morning, nice to see you, nice, yeah, looking like good weather outside, we might have a good day today. Correct, I hope we have, well, I do too. Are you going anywhere special? Well, no, we don't know yet, but where do you come from then? Oh, I come from a place called Barley. Where do you come from? Oh, well, I come from Bradford. And you'd look forward to coming in next day and say, morning, did you have a good day yesterday? Aye, we did actually. I'll tell you where we went. You want to go if you can.
Holidays in Spain were all about socialising in the sun, heavily lubricated by sangria. The new devotees of the package holiday made the most of drinks that were 3 times cheaper than in Britain. Cash-strapped at home, they could now enjoy the high life in the beachside bars.
And of course the night was all in the bars, drinking the sangria or whatever you drank. It was all very, very cheap booze in them days, very, very cheap. So you took advantage, and that was the topic of conversation. Do you know how much it's cost me? I've already got that, I've got this for this. And your money lasted ages because it was all these pesetas and you had it in your pocket. And you used to give them a tip in them days, and you used to ring a bell behind the bar. 2 pesetas, I mean, what was that? And they'd ring the bell, and then you felt that rich as though you'd just given something. We didn't have a lot of money, but you felt as though you had all these pesetas, and you had that sort of... Now, I don't know whether it was arrogance. I don't think it was, no, because I'm not an arrogant person, but you stood at the bar as though you'd arrived and you was rich.
With bars open much of the day and night, many, like Cassie McConaughey, spent their entire holiday drinking, sleeping, and sunbathing around hotel swimming pools.
I used to get up every morning with the sole intention of getting to the beach. But I never got further than the swimming pool. And there was all these really dishy little waiters used to come up, you know, and would you like a drink, senor? And I was thinking, and I used to end up by this pool all day. And I used to want to sunbathe, and I'm a fidget, terrible fidget. And I wanted to get this wonderful, wonderful tan. And the only way I could sort of do that was to knock myself out, just to knock myself out with the booze. And I just kept drinking, smiling, occasionally eating, and just, you just carried on like that ad infinitum for the whole holiday. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Fun in the sun package holidays became more hedonistic than ever before with the advent of Club 1830, formed in 1965. The club's catchphrase was, "Your mother wouldn't like it," the brainchild of its one-time managing director, ex-Gay Tours man, Vincent Cobb.
We decided to do what we felt young people wanted, and that was to get together at a certain age group, to have sun and sand and a bit of sea maybe, and a lot of sex. And of course, quite a bit of booze in the bargain. And we put youngsters together. They wanted freedom. That's exactly what we gave them, freedom. It wasn't a kind of overt display of sexual adventure, if you like. It was an implicit, not explicit, but implicit, you know, sexual adventure. That's what we were selling.
Club 1830 became notorious for sexual excess and sex scandals. However, Vincent Cobb still showed total confidence in the holidays he was selling.
I did send my two daughters on a holiday to Crete. I think one was 19 at the time and one was 22, and they had a wonderful time. And my eldest one said to me, "Dad, that's the best holiday I've ever been on in my life." I said, "Don't tell me about it. I do not want to hear."
The club was the trailblazer for a new kind of holiday, promising uninhibited sexual pleasure with no strings attached.
You went with this idea you were going to have a fantastic time, you were going to be totally uninhibited, you were going to chat up everything and anything as long as it was passing fair, and it was just me being allowed to be me without the constraints of parents or next door neighbours or jobs and things like that. You could just, it was a freedom, wasn't it? Being abroad just makes it all right, doesn't it? It doesn't matter whether it's, say, a Spaniard that you go out with, or an American, a German, anybody. It was okay, it was a one-night stand. And 9 times out of 10, they knew that, and you knew that. So there's no stress of, you know, oh, isn't this nice, when am I going to see you again? You don't have to get into all that. You can sort of step out of bed and say, "Thanks very much, bye. Have a nice day," as they say.
In the 1970s and 80s, Spain had become the party capital for young Brits abroad. Package holidays were a magnet for those in search of sun, sea and sex. But they weren't for most middle-class holidaymakers. They now avoided the big Spanish resorts, venturing further afield to other unspoilt and newly discovered destinations. Holidays overseas brought the romantic fantasy of love in an exotic, faraway country within the grasp of the young generation. It seemed like a dream come true.
She was like some sort of dream girl to me, you know, blonde hair, big blue eyes, suntan and everything like this. I mean, I tell you, I just thought, oh, I must be dreaming here. I was just staring at her, and all I could see was this sort of, it was almost like she had a halo of light round her head.
At the time, it just didn't seem like boy meets girl on holidays. We were in such a state of excitement that everything was heightened in our awareness. I mean, it's a very intensely beautiful place anyway. So when you're in love, it just becomes overwhelming.
Amongst the holidaymakers arriving in resorts like the Greek islands from the late 60s onwards were ever-increasing numbers of young, independent travellers. They were open to new experience and adventure, wanting to taste the authentic culture of the places they visited. Many young women began to travel alone or with friends, like 17-year-old Chris Hall, who went to Greece in the summer of 1977.
Going to Greece for the first time had a really big impact on me. I just could not believe how much I fell in love with it immediately. It was just like heaven on earth. The sea, the sand, the stars, the heat, lemons growing on trees, oranges, good-looking men. I mean, it was just all heaven.
On the island of Naxos, Chris met her Adonis. Adonis was, in fact, his real name.
We'd been to a couple of islands, and we were sitting in a disco, and in walked this man, and I thought, oh my goodness, just so good looking, so stunning, that my knees went. When I first met Adonis, I felt for the first time, this is a man I want to smooch with, to the music. I'll never forget that song, George Benson, The Greatest Love of All. I still hear it now and think, oh gosh, yes. I mean, I just oozed. I don't know how to explain. I just oozed passion. I just thought, I want to be in this man's arms. I just want to dance here forevermore. It was just something I had never, ever experienced in my life before. We started to walk along the beach, hand in hand, my toes running through the sand, the waves lapping on the shore, the stars, the smell. It was just so different. Not out of hearing distance of the discotheque, in the sand dunes, was a little tent. And we walked towards this little tent, and in that little tent, I had sex with Adonis, which was the first time I'd had sex with a man. And I felt it was just right. I had, if there is such a thing, fallen in love at first sight the evening before and gave myself to him the next evening.
The young men living in remote villages, now attracting holidaymakers, were also falling in love, or at least pretending to. The presence of sexually liberated British women was a huge temptation in a culture where local girls were often highly religious and chaperoned by parents. Linda Shanovich holidayed in Mexico in 1973.
Now, I had no real interest in getting into a relationship with anybody on my holiday. Carlos had a different idea, and he really worked hard at breaking down my resolve. And it was really very difficult to resist because he'd come night after night with a group of musicians and they were serenading me all these beautiful Mexican love songs. And it was so sweet. I just couldn't really resist. In the end, I just gave in. I couldn't resist. It was so beautiful.
Linda spent the final week of her summer holiday on the beach, alone with Carlos, who wanted to fulfill her every wish. She was falling in love with Mexico, and with him.
Time came for me to go back home. Carlos wasn't happy about this, and he took me out, and we were drinking margaritas with a vengeance. And he started to get morose and say, you know, this is just a holiday romance. I'm just a plaything of yours. You'll go home and tell your friends about. And he was really challenging me and my commitment. In my mind, I had just accepted I had to go home, but we'd communicate and maybe come back together at some future point. But he was really determined to make me stay. And I had the ticket with me. And I said to him, okay. And I tore the ticket up. Hasta la muerte, till the death.
Young British men on the pool and Spanish holiday resorts usually hunted in packs, eager to impress their friends with their sexual prowess and conquests. But even they could be vulnerable to some feelings of romantic love. Paul Hartley first went to Spain in 1983, aged 18, with his best friends.
First night we were there, we were just like straight out onto the streets, and it was buzzing. It was a real like, neon and everything, and all the flashing lights. We found this bar called the Rovers Return Inn. We looked inside and it was full of women, and we thought, yes. So I said, right lads, we're in here. We were like blokes with antennas on our head, you know, we were looking out to see if there were any girls that we thought fancied. I'd spotted these two girls at the bar, one of them who had this really big sort of blonde hairstyle, and I thought, oh, she looks all right. So I'm standing there thinking, God, you know, what can I come up with to, you know, which is the killer chat-up line. We'd taken our cameras out with us because we wanted to record these moments for posterity, if you like. And I thought, great, I'll get her to take a picture of us. So I sidled over, she said, excuse me, you know, can you take a picture of us? She goes, yeah, sure. And I thought, yes, this is my lucky day. So I got her to take a picture of us all with beer glasses, drinking beer and everything. And she brought the camera over, and I just went for it. I said, thanks for that. What's your name? Can I buy you a drink? And then she goes, all right, then, okay. And we got chatting. I was just loving this, because like she was sort of hanging on every word that I was saying, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, we haven't even been here one day, and I've scored already, you know. So I thought, brilliant. So I was chatting away to her, and I said to her, are you going to a club later on? You know, you're going to be going dancing or something like that. She goes, oh yeah. She said, one snag. I said, oh, you know, what's that? She goes, well, I've got a boyfriend. I said, oh, don't worry about that. He's in England. She goes, I don't think he is, actually. He's the Spanish bloke that owns this bar. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I'm from being right up here and back down here again.
After 2 summers in Naxos with her lover Adonis, Chris Hall moved there so they could be together.
When I first arrived there to live, it was fine. It was winter. There was never a dull moment. I just loved it, you know. It was, right, come on, you know, off we went, and you didn't know where you were going, and you'd end up at some fiesta or party or somebody's home with a big spread laid on. You know, it was absolutely wonderful. Until the summer came, everything was quite perfect. In the summer, I then realised that I hadn't been the only love of his life or his only holiday affair. There was others arriving during the summer holidays with the boats, much to my distress and probably much to their annoyance that I was around. And I thought I would let it maybe ride its time. Perhaps that, you know, the girl would go away and then he'd be available again and I'd sit around waiting. But it didn't ever really come to that again.
Holiday romances were often dealt a final blow when the dream man got married, usually to a local girl.
I had thought I would like to have married him, yes. I mean, he really was the one that was for me. And looking back now, I realise that that was only me that thought that way and not him. It was easy for these holiday romances, and he was young and knew that when his time came to settle down, he would marry a Greek girl. So really, they were just flings until his time came to settle down.
Young British men had their fair share of romantic flings too. The ultimate holiday fantasy was a passionate love affair with a beauty from another country.
This girl caught my eye. She was obviously looking at me, and I was thinking, absolutely brilliant. I looked at her and she was absolutely gorgeous. Blonde hair, blue eyes, gorgeous figure. I thought, my God, you know, this is what Scandinavian women are all about, you know. And, you know, the usual thing happened. We got on really well, bought her a few drinks, and when she suggested that we go for a walk to the beach, you know, I didn't choke on my beer, but believe you me, I came pretty close to doing it. And I just thought, wow, yeah, you know, fantastic. We got to the beach and everything, we sat down talking, and it was unbelievable because it was so warm, and I was just thinking, you know, this is like a scene out of a Hollywood movie. You know, this doesn't happen to people like me. And I sort of finally plucked up enough courage to kiss her. And, you know, I was thinking, oh, please make this work, please make this work. And, you know, I was expecting it to be the push away, but it didn't, you know. She sort of responded to my sort of advances. But it was awkward. I mean, you've heard the old adages about sand getting in the way. The thing that got mostly in my way was seaweed. I got it all wrapped around my jeans. I was trying to get my damn trousers off, and there was a seaweed everywhere. The thing that was causing me most grief at this point was, how in God's name am I going to get a condom on the beach with all the sand around? At which point, of course, she was just laughing, giggling, thinking it was hilarious. I'd gone into a total dream world. I had no sort of grasp of the passage of time, and it had started to get sort of quite late, and I'm thinking, oh, I just remembered that I had a bus to catch to the airport. So I just, you know, said, oh, can I have your address? And it was like scribbling it down. And I remember sitting on the bus, totally besotted with this girl and the experience, and I kept checking whether I'd still got this piece of paper, just making sure I got there. You know, I thought, I'm going to write to her, you know, maybe I'll go to Denmark. And I guess I wrote to her a couple of times when we got home, but nothing ever came of it.
For Linda Shanovich, there was no going home. She and her lover Carlos abandoned their former lives to enjoy a holiday romance in Mexico that they hoped would last forever.
We went to some of the obvious places that you would go to on holiday, the beach, etc. But once I'd committed myself to staying there for longer, then we went on more hazardous journeys into more remote places, and that grew on me even more. I felt as though I was entering into a whole new world, really. And I was surrendering more and more of myself to this life we were going to have together. And it was at this point that Carlos revealed to me that, in fact, he was married and had a child. But he did it in such a way that he was the victim of this terrible woman who had tricked him and had abandoned him and run off with their child. And so powerfully he told this to me that, of course, I felt extremely sorry for him and how much he'd suffered, and only wanted to console him even more.
Their romantic fantasy finally met reality in a hotel where the runaway lovers were staying. Carlos's wife tracked them down, and she wanted revenge.
They came and they knocked on the door, saying that Carlos's wife was coming through the streets of San Cristobal de las Casas with her machete, and she was very, very cross. I knew that she probably meant business, and I was very relieved when Carlos arrived. But when I saw him, and he was so afraid himself, he was really afraid, that I knew that this was it. We ran out of that place, and we ran along the back, these winding, narrow back streets, just completely focused on getting away and getting to the bus station. And this image was in my mind that, you know, I just didn't want to end up hacked to pieces. And I had this, just this black feeling of doom and helplessness, really. And having been caught up in something much more grim than I could ever have imagined.
Linda's love affair was over, and she left Carlos to come home alone.
I had always felt that he could protect me. He had always given the feeling that he was the man that could do anything, and that together we could do anything. And I realized that, in fact, he was just an ordinary man caught up in a sordid family relationships, which I had become part of.
Most holiday romances abroad were destined to end in heartache. But the appeal of an annual escape to the sun remained undimmed. It was now part of the British way of life.
to Pop Stars Extra on ITV2 now. The news is next on ITV, followed by our late night movie, Effects.